I think this is deserving of an audio response and deserving for a psychological. I won't say evaluation. I'll say thoughts. And this is for Andrew here. And just so you know, you can hear my voice. I'm not. When we read stuff, we often put our own emphasis in the words. This can corrupt the message. Also, it can inflare or inflame the other person rather when they're reading it, and this becomes an attack of the other person. Once you're attacking the person perceives they're being attacked. This will create a communication problem because my theory of the amygdala is always to protect the human. That it knows nothing of flight. If you do any passive running, if you will, passive aggressiveness, that's still flight. That's still fight, rather, of that flight is still a form of a fight that the brain is doing, the amygdala. I'm saying the amygdala is a beautiful, beautiful part of all our brains, but once we make a conclusive file on any topic, the amygdala thinks it's something we own. And once we declare we own it, the amygdala will protect it. And it doesn't care if it's you that does the attacking. In other words, you can't attack yourself either. A healthy person, and it may not be healthy actions, but you cannot attack yourself. That's why you can't take a hammer and hit yourself in the hand. You could come up, you have to first make a conclusive file. Why are you going to do that? And just to prove somebody wrong that you're going to do it. Yes, it's going to have broken bones and everything else. You then make another file that says, I got to prove them wrong, so I'll just zone out for a minute. I'll swing the hammer and break these bones in my hand to show him he's wrong. You had to have a long discussion inside your brain to do that. You just couldn't pick up the hammer and just smash your hand just to prove me wrong. It was a discussion you had on how much this would work. Possibly even having a back and forth about how soon it'll be over with and etc. Just because you're fighting the statement that you can prove to someone else you can hit your hand. All right, this is the amygdala with this beautiful thing. Now let's look at I want to start from the bottom of Andrew's and ours back and forth conversation here, or communication. It's interesting that crossed out. I didn't cross this out. It appears that Google is it's an odd duck. The sanctioning I find is an attack. How about that? I didn't do this. So why would I find this as an attack? Because I wrote these words, and I clearly did not write a line through them. So Google is now presenting my data with this line through it. Andrew reads it, and he has to interpret that I wanted to say this, or I think he would interpret it. I wanted to say it. I want him to know it, and then I put a line through it, crossing it out to say, I'm not sure. It's just craziness that Google did this. Andrew, so when you're looking at this, I did not do this, man. I have no idea how this changed in your mind, the emphasis of what I was saying. I'm doing bold letters to emphasize what I'm talking about. I'm not screaming. If I'm screaming, that means I'm totally in fight mode, and my amygdala is taking over. I am capable of screaming. That means that I've lost it. I've been triggered, not just a slight trigger we're talking about here. That means I call it temporary insanity with the amygdala taking over. So let me give you guys a quick example of the amygdala taking over and running and controlling you. I want you all to look at the colors around you and find a color, anything that you perceive as whatever color you can look around and find. Look around the room, find a contrasting color to that, another color that's not similar, not like a blue and a light blue, like a blue and a black. Now I want you to look sort of towards that blue, and I'm going to ask you, what color is that? You'll say it is. I'm trying to talk fast to get this data out here. You'll say it's blue. Now, even though I'm doing an experiment on you, you cannot call that color the other color and you cross the room there because you've already made a file owning it that it is blue. Your amygdala doesn't care if you're trying to prove me wrong. It says, no, we can't have two existing files to come to the same conclusion. So I can call it blue, you'll say, but you'll laugh about it and etc. You're just trying to prove a point. You can call it blue, but you don't mean it. Opposite colors, I mean. So whatever you made up, blue or black, whatever it may be. So bias. I do have bias, and I try to bring up my bias. And one of them is if I'm hollering. At that point, my bias is shown that I have a conclusive file that's being attacked, and it's shown with everybody, all arguments. So that's part of my long message I'm gonna get across to people, but. Let's do this backwards. Instead of reading from the top down, let's kind of jump around a bit and look at the message. Let's paint Andrew in a favorable light to begin with, in other words, so I'm not biased here. Obviously, let me give some groundwork because I got this from the guy. I think of him as Schultz, the one with the German helmet on, in the comments. He told me I should do some more introductions to my video before I start talking. So I dedicate this introduction to him. It takes a lot of time to do an introduction. I normally just jump right in, give the data, and then I run out. But I'm going to take his advice and start doing this. Andrew states to myself, I only edited number 9 and 10 in one paragraph. This is in reference to me up here saying, please don't edit, because I can't figure out what the edit is. All I do on my side is I see the comment, it says edited, and I have to approve it. I have no idea what the previous comment was anymore. I guess I can go back in there and try to find it and match it word for word, but I don't have the energy to do that. I've got to work myself. I only edited 9 and 11 in one paragraph, just technical error, which would be great. I do this a lot. I get 9 mixed up with 11 and all this junk, so it does matter. Technically, it sure does. And he changes his statement. He wanted to make sure it says Cantonary by error. He said, I knew that. There was a typo, or Google just auto-checked you. That is all that changed. I'm glad he stated that. No substance was changed or anything else that you referred to. Okay, awesome. Okay. Also, I can say I can say. So when he says I can say, this is now psychologically. This means this is a conclusive file. Also, I can say is that you can calculate the compression number 11, which I have done in multiple responses. So he says you, meaning me. So communication-wise, at one point, I'm at a much higher level, but you guys are down there maybe at a lower level. But when you get to my level, you're going to be able to start recognizing your triggers and how initially, if he says you, he's speaking for me now. So Andrew, if he wanted to talk more neutral, wouldn't involve me with his opinion when he says you. I know you guys, some people would look at it, a third party would look at it, and this is Andrew and I going at it. A third party would look at it and say he just meant, you could mean theoretically you as a person or people can. But this is not the way it takes place in a conversation between two people. If you're saying you're now taking on that person's position, telling them what they can do, literally. And so this is a form of attack if somebody's giving orders, unless you agree to take the orders, like a boss. I get this, and so I recognize the bias in my brain, and I try to back it out, just letting you know. I'm helping out everyone, I hope. Also, I can say is that you can calculate the compression of number 11. I cannot calculate the compression of number 11. That's not an attack on Andrew, but I cannot because I have my own reasons in a minute, which I have done in multiple responses. The horizontal component, which is in the cosine of 32 degrees times the compression load. All right, I don't want to bore. This still got to be psychology, but so I've got to you guys, I don't have to explain this. I can't explain this to you yet, but I'll come back to that. I then use the shear friction capacity equation and the concrete code, this ACI, to calculate the resistance. I wonder if Andrew, talking to you now, did you do your deductions? What deductions did you do? Did you do it for the ductwork through there? Did you add in for the reinforcement? Possibly. I think the conversation goes no, yay, whatever. The point is, Andrew, up here, that no one can do, I stated that no one can do this compression testing because it doesn't exist. The column's gone, it's done, it's broken up. The only time you had an opportunity to do any investigative compression testing on it or to evaluate it was why it was split up, why it was broken and still in position. Here's the problem. By the time you finish your calculations, as some of my great viewers, and I'm complimenting my viewers, stated, and as I stated, but he phrased his wording more eloquently. It's always in movement. I think that's Mark. Maybe I'm wrong. This bridge was always in movement, and he gave credit back to me that said it was doomed to fail. It was always creeping, is what I said. But I kind of like Mark's term that it was always in movement. This bridge was always in movement. So by the time you take your measurements, go back there and calculate them and what you think you're doing and what you think they're. First off, you don't know how deep the cracks are. You don't know the profile of the cracks. By the time you did the calculations of what's remaining of the concrete member, the bridge is always moving. You've got a new calculation now. Because it wasn't shored up and stopped in motion, the calculations anyone does is just fake, as I said up top. They're just fake. Here's the other thing about that, is that no one does a deduction. They all have this number 11 sliding off, but no one does a deduction for those huge cracks. You're doing all this cross-sectional measurements, but it's failed. And as an engineer, we're never to engineers should never be. Okay, so this is fluid. So it's fluid. It's always moving. The cracks are developing still. How can you say what's going on if you can't determine where the moment that's creating these cracks is being created? If you have it as the moment, the movement is being created at sliding at the deck, clearly we should be able to see it sliding at the deck. It does not present itself as sliding at the deck. Theoretically, it presents itself in this theory, as Andrew and many of the other forum over here talk about. And I'm going to click that page open. They're theoretically stuck. So this is that groupthink. Interesting, I did a groupthink video. I came back over here and someone had a groupthink post. It was only about 5 days before my groupthink post. I had to regroup with a psychiatrist friend of mine on this, and I said, what's the word I'm looking? I said mass hysteria or something like that. And he says, no, you're looking for groupthink. I'm like, groupthink, right? So groupthink is what I was looking for, and then the person posts groupthink here. Now this person posted that about 4 days before me, as this other person posted about it, and that made me. You got to be able to accept data, and that made me wonder. And I talked about mass hysteria of my man many months ago, but I did the groupthink video only a moment ago, being triggered by it of that day. I don't recall seeing groupthink in that message up here, because I think I made it this far and went down to the groupthink message. And then after that, groupthink popped up or something like that. Right here, right after my video. So apparently Eagle is looking at it and perhaps countering me with this, thinking I'm looking at it, which I am looking, more frequently now at this forum to see if the data changes. It does not change with the new releases. The shear action is coming across the top of here. Magically, shear is shearing off what's already loose, number 12 and 11. Why do they have this shearing pushing this off? Why aren't they just pushing together? And then they have a redirect. At the end of this is a cliff all of a sudden, and it falls off. How is it falling off, this cliff falling off, if this is still number 12? 12. It's in number 12. So let me tell you psychologically what I did. I owned that I said number 12. And instead of correcting it, I wanted to call it B. My brain that fastly wanted to save myself by saying, you called it 12, see if we can make it work. This is how psychologically you got to get that deep into your head to catch yourself when you actually trying to, when you're being corrupted by your amygdala, your ownership files. As I stated, all attacks are an attack, even yourself. So by correcting myself even, it's sort of a mini attack, and I want to save my statement on 12. You just heard it live. So clearly I can save it with the way I did it. But in reality, I wanted to say that the B in number 12, going across number 12 and not inside the deck. I mean, if you count this as part of the deck, this little wedge, you sure can, but yeah, right. There, you'd have to show me the reinforcement tying that back into there. And we know it's spalled up right here anyway. This is the deck area. So you have this magically coming over to this cliff, because this is in existence today. All of this area is in existence, Andrew, and any other engineers watching. So you have a cliff that you all of a sudden have this thing shearing over. How much of this cliff does it go off before it starts this redirect of shear? I ask that of you. How much of that? Now, if you guys don't understand what I mean by this cliff, I apologize. But imagine you pushing this off and then creating this redirect, this downward shear. How does that happen if we see intact the deck surface without any major cracks in the deck surface? I wish they'd clean the deck off. We're talking about its failure between D1 and D1s out to D6s, basically, and transferring loads. Yet it's not presenting itself as cracks in the cross sectional of this deck. So I can't even do a butterfly effect of the deck. I can't make this happen that way. All right. So cracks. There are cracks inside this member like this. This is a major detail, and you can't just discount them. All cracks are telling the story of what's going on with the structure. These cracks, and now I'm triggered. I feel like cursing, in fact. So I want to curse. So pretend like I'm cursing now, and I'm saying that they're tensile cracks. They're not compressive cracks. If you don't know the difference, You can't analyze this with math. You can't analyze any of this if you don't understand what cracks mean, the significance of it. You can't, because you don't see the cracks. If this is the case, you don't see the cracks. My man Marmalade is what I was talking about. Right here. I would really like to help you. It would really help if you could start your videos with a brief overview. So Marmalade is what I'm referring to. Back to the comments. The rear diagram. So let's just jump on. How do you determine what is fake math? So I think I've determined what fake math is by you just telling me that number 11 can do this mathematically without addressing that it has cracks all in it, that this member is not capable, it's not taking compressive loads. You didn't tell me these cracks down here, for example, diagonal tension crack. So it says diagonal tension crack. All right, so that's nice. That means opening. This is from Tom Structural, Tom FH. But he didn't explain how it's a diagonal tension crack, not a shear crack, these two planes going this way. Tension crack, that means it's coming open. This deck is doing that. If it's a shear crack, it's pulling away. This is one place and that's another. And so it's a form of shear, but he's not describing that. But now he says real shear friction plane right here, real shear. And I did a video trying to explain, is it here? Or is it up here as F dot explained? Or is it sort of where both of these, the most shear coming, where both of these meet equal to each other? Is it out here and here? This has got so many wild cards in it. Or is it down here, right about here, and to here? Or is it we're closer to where these new points here and here cross each other? The forces cross each other. Is this one now a reverse compressive area right here at this plate? Since it's putting 280,000 pounds of force, is it not putting 280,000 pounds of force at the end of this plate and looking like this, coming backwards? Does that explain the crack we see going up here in the back side of this member where we see 12 and 11 connect? Perhaps the 280,000 pounds of force found a weakness and it addressed itself where these two meet, and you see the crack. It's like that. I love cracks, guys. I really do love them. And now they have this sliding laterally, but yet the J-bar is in perfect shape. This metal here is in perfect shape. So it's able to create shear, a crushing, to break all that concrete away and fall down, and still keep this member in beautiful condition. I'm quite triggered now, so I'm quite triggered. I have to. So once you realize you're triggered, I'm being owned right now by my own amygdala. It's gonna have me just pointing out stuff for too long. So I need to tell it to bite me, to tell my amygdala to calm down, man. Let's get back to this, and let's back it down. Let's change the topic. I'm letting you guys hear what's in my brain now. My amygdala still wants to fight. It wants to still prove how stupid so I say we don't have a choice. The amygdala is no flight unless you taught yourself how to do flight, run away. As Andrew says, I delete comments, things like that. Multiple reasons I delete comments. One is if it's off topic, if it's just, I find it just stupid. If the links link back to somewhere that's stupid, from everywhere from that professor, whatever, to whatever. I don't share these links. It's not what in YouTube, even I have other data that says YouTube says don't share links out of your, off your page. Your watch minutes will stop. You go lower down the list and you just made the other people go up on the list. YouTube has made that clear. So I have no choice but to finish this one end here. So this is magically slid off, redirected down on this plane here without doing any damage to this J-bar. Any engineer that says that's possible without damage to this J-bar and crumpling and everything, I think that they need to explain that. I won't say they're on crack because I'm on crack. I really love this crack stuff. Maybe I should change my channel. Construction Engineering Equilibrium on Crack. I hope that makes sense for you, and the people are trying to attack me personally about. He changed the name of his channel. It's my channel. I can change as much as I want. Don't cry, little baby. It's still me. It's still me. You're taking a personal attack. You're doing an amygdala trick, trying to, a narcissist trick, trying to turn people against somebody just by trying to shoot their character down. I find that very weak, and I find those type of people narcissists who I wish nothing but bad news for. Okay. Further, I gave you the major split crack and what force does it have left in it. I talked about that. All right, so here's Andrew. I think we're kind of beating this dead horse. Andrew's comments are over here. He says he never saw the engine tips. I didn't know about the engine tips when I first did analysis. Okay, so now he does know about it, and he did an analysis of it. Well, I don't know when he did the analysis, but I know we had false plans, all of us, at one point, and none of us have the as-built plans for this exactly. There might be another version of things out there. So I don't know how you're doing that anyway. Besides, nobody has the exact measurements of all the cracks. You just can't just. I can't give you a crack. I can give no engineer a cracked up member in a video as we see here, and then say, tell me what loads it can take and what's going to happen to it. Any engineer that takes on that task is not an engineer. They're just somebody who doesn't know their limitations, who can't speak, who doesn't know that they should say, I don't have enough data. I can't give you when this is going to fail looking at all these cracks. I don't have enough data. Plus, the data I do have shows it's still in movement, in flow. And so whatever I give you, it's going to change moment from moment. If anybody states that they could give you the analysis of it, well, they didn't even need to see the video. They would automatically know where it failed because they're so great in their analysis. And yes, that is an attack. I'm saying that that's BS. All right, my analysis and view of the evidence led to the for all of them, not just Andrew. I'm saying all of them. Now, Andrew doesn't have a choice but to fight back because he has a conclusive file that he can do this. And so he's owned the file that I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. For him to come back now and say, you know what, I see, yeah, it was broken up. My calculations can't be true. That would be him having to, his amygdala would have to allow him to attack himself to say that. He's already made a conclusive file that he can do it. And so there is no way that he can now claim that he cannot do it. There is no way. So when we're trying to communicate with somebody like an Andrew, this is why I would just delete Andrew's comments in the past. Because they've already made a conclusive file. It's not open for data. Again, that color blue that you mentioned about, it's not open for data. I can't play with your mind and say, well, you know, it looks like an off shade of green. You'll think about it for a minute and go, what? Where did you come up with this green from? You go, well, you know, and then you'd only play along so much before you go, you know, that's BS. It's blue. And so this is the same thing here. I can only play along so much with calculations of, you know, of theoretical calculations because it ignores the crack process that happened. And I started on 228. It ignores that these rods are part of the shear plane and have to fail in shear. Interesting enough, we see that I had a commenter yesterday tell me that number 11 was sheared at the deck. So that report has got some traction on it with this shearing that they put out there falsely. OSHA did. Where's my man stating about shearing here? And I wrote him, no, man, that's I had to write him saying, no, that wasn't sheared then. That's a shear after the fact. If it was sheared then, I would have to see a piece of steel member that whipped around and sheared it. But we don't see that sheared, and I think that's some nasty data that's out there. With that said, if they can show me that it's cracked at that deck, which we know if we look at the FIU, the report, and then what I'm talking about, guys, is let me find it. Yeah, here's the report. Am I in the, oh, I'm not in the report. Hold on. Here's the report. What I'm talking about is the number 11A, post tension bar A. So that's the way I'm speaking. 11A and 11B. And yes, in the video I get that stuff backwards, even calling it 1111. I'm like, come on. As you can see, I do my videos live and I talk about it. So there's the post tensioning. Did they do it with all this amount of friction in place when they did it? And apparently it took a camber because tension appeared down on 10. Did I get that right? Yeah, down on 10 when they did 11. On 228, it's stated, I believe, right about then. Don't believe all that stuff there. Now, let's go to. So I mentioned to Andrew that I'm kind of biased now for MCM and their craftsmanship after I beat them down in the past. Remember, I go with the data. I was presented data that looked like they had bad craftsmanship on the transverse post tensioning setup. Now look at this, and this thing looks pretty good. This is the ocean report. I mean, the consistency of the loops, the distance, they all look pretty darn uniform. So if you look at this, though, we do have some gapping here that's consistent, and at this point, they now become together. Perhaps that's the intent of the engineer, though, to join them at this point. But the consistency looks pretty darn, the spacing and all. But why didn't they just show us 11 and 12? Why this? Why this? You see the stirrups here standing up. Why couldn't we see 11 and 12? Well, because this is all about, this is how you brainwash someone. Is you give them the data, you give them the conclusive file, then you give them the data you want. Don't give them different data contrary to your conclusive file. So you could say, am I doing that? I'm always willing to change in my data. I want the new data. And you see me now change about this. They gave us data that they said that at one point MCM had to break the concrete up. Man, the cat's out the bag when they say that, isn't it? That they broke it up. So I wrote Tiger Grant people about it. I'm getting no response about what would the reports look like. I also wrote FIU. What did the reports look like while they were taking this money? They had to do reportable things. One of them you would think would be the concrete that they had to jackhammer up. I received no reports back at this time. OSHA has stated that. That would sort of make you muddy the water towards MCM. But if they fix the problem, they fix the problem. They said it was concrete related, that the supplier ran out. Well, that's not MCM's fault, is it? MCM didn't start the structure knowing they're going to jackhammer it all out. So come on. I'm not going to blame MCM and air about that. It's not MCM's fault. The concrete supplier, whatever. The plant broke down, they shut down, the temperature got too hot for the concrete, whatever it might be. I don't know that situation, but it appears to have been resolved. But the idea is I give you data to make you hate. So, and this is falling, and this is craftsmanship. This does suck. I have, and that's the weirdest thing of all, that one there. The chamfer, and yet this piece is still there. That one, I'm still kind of playing in my brain. How did they get that chamfer to do that? Maybe they put this one's a weird one. That one I didn't play around too long, but I played around with it going, how did they manage to get this chamfer behind here? And also get the piece to stay. I find that kind of an interesting detail, and this thing is interesting too. But here are the tension cracks, but that's at the hinge, so all bets are off at the hinge. This is what I'm referring to at the deck. This is what everyone else, well, except for the one image, that says it calls it a tension failure. So this is tied to the deck, as we can see. It's not, maybe not literally tied, but the bonding of the concrete took place here, causing this tensile separation of these two units, this part of the concrete and this part of the concrete being poured at one time in a parallel plane like that, in a parallel plane to what I've considered a reinforcement. If you look at the shape of it, it's in a diagonal, sort of in line with the reinforced number A, but this bonded to the deck much better. This to me indicates the deck is already creeping down. Let's call it the middle of the structure. But in this case, we now know in hindsight it's between 10 and 12. I would have to expect. I hold my last dollar too, if we were allowed to bet, that it has to be at between 10 and 12. The creep is taking place, which puts the load back down 10 of the structure, not making it out to here. People don't get that. You're also double dipping about the truss system. It's not a truss system. You're stuck on a conclusive file. Andrew is. It's a truss system. This is what I mentioned in my big long video. This cannot be a truss system. If it's a truss system, you got flexing, you got chain redirection, you've got transfer loads, you've got too much going on in a truss system. This can't do it because it's a concrete member, and it would any forces of any reversals are counted with post tension bars in these members, so there's no reversal that takes place. Finally, we have the deck that's anchored down on each end. A truss system, you don't anchor it down on each end. You got to let one end do a little bit of flexing. This is designed to be anchored on each end, not to be flexing. Andrew apparently is a mechanical engineer, doesn't understand the mechanics of that, yet he does. But because the new file loads up that, oh shit, he's right, I can't have my truss pinned down on each end and call it a truss system. So Andrew's brain protects him, his amygdala protects him and just discounts it, sort of blocking it out. You're in your temporary insanity, blocks it out, and he has to go back to default where he is. So we're looking at Andrew's brain, not mine and mine, but Andrew's brain. This is tight down here, more open here. How did this happen? It has to be creeping at the between 10 and 11 at this point. If this is the other end of the deck, then I reserve the right to say it's between 1 and 2 and 3 then. If this is the other end of the deck, I reserve the right to change the position. That appears to be the formwork with the pencil line on it, showing good craftsmanship where they actually still have the, the pencil line is perfectly in line. Appears to be a pencil line, which I find better than a chalk line. So this is where I believe it's creeping down. The loads are coming here, pushing this deck down. Our creep is happening here, between here and here. This being, it puts the longitudinal cables more in tension. Obviously, the theoretical calculations did not stop this deck from deflecting. Andrew states that he ran all the numbers and he doesn't see how the deck deflecting has anything to do with number 11 being moved out. That you don't need this to creep to move 11 out. Well, if this is a concreted member here, how do we get this to push out? How is that? Don't use any engineering skills. Just use common sense. How do you get this? If this is a pencil and this is a pencil and you're holding it together with your two fingers up here, you hold it together so tautly that neither one can move out. How do you get it to move out? You're going to have to let something give, aren't you? But they use forces created in number 11 to have it move out number 12. The video doesn't show it kicking out 12. It doesn't show it. It shows a lateral movement, and also I explain it with the shear from the back of this system in my last video. That explains the cracking, the shear cracking of dead load. It tells you why it doesn't continue breaking, because number 12B is holding on to the back of this deck. It explains it all. Andrew and them are owning that it must be sliding off, and they are stuck. And this is where I'm going to end the video talking about engineers, and you can come in and read Andrew's comments. They're quite long, and we're going back and forth. And your emphasis, you're never going to be able to understand the emphasis because each one of us wrote it differently, unless you get somebody like myself explaining to you what emphases are, what they are in each one. So looking at mine, evaluating my emphasis. You keep adding your comments, please stop. Please stop that. It changes the replies. That's the way my emphasis is. And you asserted my voice. Please, just do an amendment comment, as others will not see one-to-one reply. Okay. I'm not the person to validate your trust illusions, and I'm not being smart about it, of this structure. The trust illusions are, I'm stating that he believes he's acting as a trust and not as a compressive unit, I-beam. You are fighting me because you have no choice, which he has no choice because he's got a conclusive file. You are stuck in your amygdala response, protecting that conclusive file. I have no way to help anyone stuck in fight mode. So there is no way. This is what I want to share with the world. Once you make a conclusive file that blue is blue, this color blue you're looking at is blue, there is no way that you're going to get new data to change your color of blue unless you get new data that says now blue is now called purple. You need new data. For example, most of us grew up where we had another planet in the sky. They finally get new data, and they finally say, oh, that's just ice. It's not a planet, or they say whatever they came up with. So now we get new data by the same people that gave us the wrong data to begin with. But we accept it and move on. Right now is no longer my very earthly mother served us 9 pizzas, and one of them is missing. If anybody knows that my very earthly mother served us 9 pizzas. Our galaxy is now shy a planet. We get new data, you change. And we cannot get change until we get new data. For example, my blue is always going to be blue, but there are shades of blue. And sometimes I will accept if I call blue the wrong color and everybody looks at it and go, man, your eyes are messed up. That's purple. And I look at it and go, oh, yeah, I see now it is purple. Something like that. That's not, it's very close to, gray and blue sometimes look alike. Those are the playing, but if it's very clear that I know electric outlet is an electric outlet, there's no way you're going to now be able to tell me that's a microwave oven. So this is what happens here. And there's no way. You're not going to, there is a way, actually. If we decide that all microwave ovens now are outlets and all outlets are now called microwave ovens, I'll accept the new data, I'll learn, and I'll change. Now, I'm not talking about different languages, so don't pull any, I can prove you wrong by different languages. I'm speaking one-to-one English here to you. I have no way to help anyone stuck in fight mode, so we have no way to pull someone out in fight mode. There is no way. You can only change it by getting hold of the data, talk to them about the data, and let them come to a new conclusion. I am always subject to change with this data of this structure as new data presents, as it did with the OSHA report. New data presents, I now have to add that new data into my whole system, including that they said grout, everything was grouted. I now have to detract all my other videos where I said grouting is not there. Although I still don't see grouting, a couple of people have now written me said that they see grouting. No one's just sent me a picture of the grouting. So I accept their comments with a grain of salt. I'm waiting for the data to show up, such as the receipt for the grout, the application of that day with the photographs of the grout being applied. I don't see grout, but I will not go down a video short of what I just did. I will not go down a video saying the grouting is a lie. I'm just no longer saying grouting is a lie. It's a fictitious thing. I'm accepting that grouting is stated as being, by OSHA is stating it being there. I don't see the grouting. By you asking me to ask about a specific cracking, is you having no choice but at least fake an answer with fake math. See, he has no choice. If I ask him about any crack, right, he's got a conclusive file. His math is correct. He will not have to give me fake math on how the crack was created, probably on the lines of, well, when it was pushing out 12, those cracks were created. So the forces in the vector and the trivector and the third race of the third horse caused the pulling, as this was sliding away, it caused the pulling separation of that section there, and that's the shear action you're seeing. But you just told me it moved. I accept that. You told me it moved. Show me how it moved. How did it move in the deck? All right. So I get your trivector, and even I could even give you that if you can show me how it moved, because I do not have movement. I'm trying to find the image for you guys. Oh, it's back here. It's in this report. I do not have shearing. This thing sliding off, because do we see shearing down here? Where his thumb is, do you see it sliding, shearing on this side? This would be stationary. That would be shearing that direction. We see it in place. I see it tighter here and open here. To exaggerate, I see 0 point here, and I see a 28-degree opening up here, if you will. Of course, I don't know 28 degrees. I just gave you an idea. Same thing here, except for this side, not the other side. I see now a crack down the base and this here. Explained by the dip in the deck, not by sliding, shearing away. Because these guys are matched. They're bookmarked. They're bookmarked. They're not this action, this direction. Then we have the guy saying that it wasn't profiled at 1/4 inch. Well, I don't know about you guys in this image here. I'd say that's a nice little up and down valley. I don't know about you, but that's pretty damn nasty looking. I'd say it's probably got more friction there than not. Okay, I don't know exactly which one this is again, but I don't see the deck shearing, sliding there. This says photo 17.3, 228. That's 228. That's already the deck creeping. All right, so getting back to the psychology, because this is my psychology channel. I'm going on with this. I allow a lot of amateurs to make false assumptions, but you claim to be an engineer, so you do not get a soft step from me. So if he's an engineer, I don't have to be nice to him. You guys, I got to make a counter video to try to explain it differently. I don't have to be nice to him. I can say you're a friggin' idiot for not showing me it's sliding, and you don't get a pass for saying that the stationary points at the canopy and number 11 base is sliding out. And then you tell me you don't understand how it can slide out. That my question is, how can it slide out with the deck not dipping down? You'd have to tell me that it broke at the node and is pulling from 10 and 12, shifting off. You'd have to come up with some magical way, another formula. But you have to show dipping. If he can't do it, well, he's in the wrong field, period, Andrew. That you should just keep doing math, whatever you're doing, but no analysis. So I'm attacking now. Andrew has no ability to do structural analysis. Maybe he's good right with math, but he has zero ability, it's my conclusive file, to do structural analysis. And frankly, all of these people over here, most of them, so here's my bias. A couple of them gave me some nice compliments, so now I'm turning around attacking them. This is a bias now. because I'm going to disclaim it saying, well, I don't mean to attack those people. I have no choice. I'm sorry, guys. It's psychologically, so you guys can actually discount my bias and say, well, you should be attacking them too. You make the decision. I cannot. I'm biased in that respect now. So besides those people, I'm not attacking anybody supporting me over here. It's just the way it is, guys. That's the brain. So in reality, I should be attacking them too, as long as they're on the same page of sliding in this and that. But I got to give a soft pass on that. Back to, so you know my bias. So now back to where the hell did it go? So Andrew doesn't get a pass. I call BS on your ability to evaluate what you see in a video. Further, no one presented. So this is not screaming. I'm saying no one presented. And further, no one presented and failure diaphragm as the photo of the rear diaphragm shows. So even I'm lost on that one. No one presented and failure diaphragm as the photo of the rear. All right, so I'm trying to say no one presented it. No one presented anything showing how the crack in the diaphragm failed. Anyway, so all I call, okay. So right, what I'm saying, and I definitely, so what I'm saying is that when everyone's presenting all their failure modes and their beautiful calculations over here in Miami Vice, over here, Miami Pedestrian Bridge, no one saw the back of this and all their fancy calculations. So if you think you could show this in calculation, clearly you should have been able to predict the back of it should look like this. But no one did. So I find that math lacking. All right, I can tell you how a member is going to buckle based on a reinforcement. Based on a reinforcement and a height ratio, I should be able to tell you where the buckling and shear is going to take place on that. If shear is going to take place, where it's going to take place. Okay, so I call BS on the statement of you calling it with math. Further, no math can show member 11 sliding without deck failure first. I've had enough of you being stuck, and as an engineer, I find this back and forth a waste of energy. So you hear my exhaustion. But I will use this to talk about psychology of engineering and how engineers blank up based on being stuck. This is what I'm talking about, that he's stuck. And so now that he owns it, he's going to keep pushing this narrative. So the question now is, does NTSB have engineers like Andrew and these others in this forum that are stuck? And maybe they'll read the OSHA report and they're stuck. Now remember, this is government. They also got to do their own governmental reasons to do their own lying. They're not going to be representing the people, as we know, because they're not letting the data just come out and letting us all have at it. Further, I suggest that one of the things that it needs to happen with all bridges, all plans and all repairs should be made public. I'm catching hell trying to get some public data out of Philadelphia right now on a repair for this bridge. I went and photographed it, videotaped it, everything, and I can't get the specifications on how they determine how that repair was done. It's just, hey, just try this out, it appears. They don't want to share it with me. I've tried everything, and they're just ignoring it. Now, of course, you can sue them. I'm not going to that point, but it's not yet. But it's just craziness. So they're protecting the data because they can't support the data. The same thing with bridge repairs need to be all made public. I said in a video a long time ago that they need to do a bounty. One of the brilliant, and I find these people quite brilliant, the computer guys over here, not Charlie specifically, but all the computer guys, man, I find some of their thinking is brilliant. Their capabilities, I mean, for somebody that's not a structural person or, for that, I find some of their math and thinking and logic very logical. And some of it's wrong, but I give them the most credit. I give no room for an engineer to be wrong. So I don't have a part wrong for you. Of course you can be wrong, but but you need to correct it. Once you're wrong, go, I need to change the data. I need to accept the data and change my thinking. I find that anybody doesn't change their thinking with new data, they just throw it out. I find them to be, that's an attack, and I'm cursing in my mind right now. So you guys can imagine the cursing I'm saying right now to be effing crazy, to be not somebody that should be doing this stuff. You don't want these engineers out here that can't change with the data. They can't go, wait a minute, stop. I had an idea. This was supposed to work. I just realized I just screwed up. Yes, I screwed up. Let's stop it right now. Let me think this out. I got to think this out. I got to come up with it. Yes, the contractor has I've done this a few times where I had to stop, and the contractors do get mad. You know, I'm like, I don't care. Just chill out. I got to work through this. I got to see if this can work. Of course, they want to tell you that it works. It works. It works. If you saw the failure in your design, stop, fix it. An amateur, like a contractor, will say, let's cover it up. A professional doesn't cover up his mistakes. He recognizes them. He or she recognizes them, brings everything to a stop and says, let me fix this. Let me see what I did wrong here. Let me back this up to see where I did wrong. My elevations. Oh, yeah, it's in the elevations. Oh, I accepted this part of the data. This corrupted it from here on down. Oh, gosh. Oh, I got to fix all of this now. Or I missed the loads on this. Oh, gosh. And you eat it. You eat it. That's it. Now, I've been kicked off jobs when I'm trying to eat something that I see wrong and that I won't go forward with. I've been kicked off saying, no, we want you to eat it. Keep going. And it may not be my mistake. I'd rather pretend like you think it's my mistake because it works better in my scenario. But ultimately, my mistakes are so small that probably the contractor's right most of the time. You can just keep railroading right over it. But still, I come up with a scenario and I have to fix it. So it's very, very small. I don't make major mistakes, and I'm using my brain now trying to calculate that. Trying to evaluate major mistakes. Trying to find one that I can brag with you guys about, a major mistake that I had to fix. Major mistake I had to fix. I'm everywhere now. I'm rushing around in my brain. Major mistake. Nope. If anything, the things I do allow railroading through is quite often the foundations that people do not want to reinforce them or hire a soil engineer to evaluate the soil, the water conditions. A lot of guys a contractor will just throw stone down and then pour his footer, and the inspector will never know that the stone was there and then the concrete was placed on top of the stone base. I see that frequently, and the inspector should have caught it. So it's not for me to make the phone call to rat them out in that case, if that's not my position in that job site at that time. So I do know how to stay in my zone, if you will. If I'm not the engineer, if I'm the contractor, I stay in my zone. You don't get the other hat for free, though. So if I'm the contractor, you don't get engineering for free. If I'm the engineering side of it, you don't get contracting for free. Yeah, you do, actually. But the other way, if I'm the contractor, you get no engineering for free. So I'm able to compartmentalize that. I hope that helps you see compartmentalize. Further, no one, because I made a conclusive file to that event, to that extent. How engineers must be drawn to structures like a painter is to art. It cannot be just a job. This is what I say to you. You must be obsessed with this stuff, your job. I may post a video. Okay, right. So Andrew, you got to read his comments where he's just, basically I did the paraphrasing. I don't want to read it again because it will just trigger me again. Andrew's just going on and on about how if you're interested in the truth, go after the facts and not people. So this is Andrew. Maybe he's feeling I'm going after him, but I can go after people too. Definitely go after people. Facts are not a thing. It's data that we determine to be facts. So right now it's just data. Everything I'm presenting to you, it's not facts. Even if OSHA supports my statement, until you prove it in facts. For example, I need to still prove that the post-tension, why the deck deflected. Why did it deflect? We know that it's overloaded there, but why there? Why did the failure there? That's what all engineers should be asking. Why did the deck fail there? Why did it resolve itself between 10 and 12 at the deck? Why did it take a deflection there? Especially if they have it already failing in their crazy minds out at 11 and 12. So Andrew's telling me not to attack people. Oh, I attack people, baby. If you're representing those those facts, you're open game. You represented it, not me. Facts are, here's a photograph. These are facts. Okay? So these are facts. This is not a fact unless we can prove it. This is a fact. We're looking at a fact now. That's data. It's a fact. A man's hand's there. We're looking at a photograph. Now, what's not a fact is we don't know if it's edited. So I can't say, it's a fact this is an unedited photograph. Well, it's a fact that it is an edited photograph to some degree based on the processing of the camera. So the process of the camera matters too. So, it's a fact we're looking at a photograph. It's not a fact we're looking at spalling. It's our conclusion or thinking that it's spalling. It's a fact we're looking at a piece of metal sticking out a deck that might have been a part of the anchors for transportation. That's not a fact. It appears to be a piece of rod or metal sticking from the ceiling. How it got in there, I don't know. I know what its intent is. So it appears it's a fact that this is part of concrete. This could be an optical illusion somehow I'm looking at. It's just data until we can prove it's a fact. So it's a fact I'm looking at an image. Again, it's not a fact this is a red crayon mark. It's not a fact that it's a brush mark. It's a fact I'm looking at a human hand. All right, so what's, you get my point on that. So this person's using fact quite loosely. It's data, and we arrive at, where are we going here? So that was something somebody shared with me. Where are we going with the fact? Let me back that up. So if Andrew says I can't attack people, oh wait a minute, that's the other picture over here, right? I can explain more of the issues related to so when Andrew says facts, we now can use this against Andrew as far as conclusive files. Once he says facts, it's a conclusive files, guys. There's no way Andrew can change his position. He's already made a fact. And so you can't change Andrew's mind. And this is why I block people like Andrew as far as deleting their comments, because they say things like this. Once somebody starts saying facts, if you don't agree with their facts, or if their facts just don't make sense, be careful, people with facts. They're no longer open. I can explain more of the issue related to the cracks. I can explain. Then do it. It is just not possible to discuss every aspect of YouTube comment. Ask a specific question about the cracks, and I will address it for you. I think I already went a long way to explaining many of your concerns. So he thinks he went a long way. Well, it's because Andrew's not open for discussion because he has no ability to evaluate cracks. I wouldn't troll myself and ask Andrew to evaluate cracks and accept his answers, because he does not have all the details of the structure of this bridge. Until Andrew can look at those plans, and I can't even do it yet, and state to me right here, this is 1.5 inches. This is 1 inch. This is clearly close. This is a 1/2 inch gap. These are 3 pipes. These terminate at the base of 12. These terminate where? These terminate at the bottom of 12 of the diaphragm. When Andrew can do that, when anyone can start pointing out all this stuff, then we can start having a discussion. Otherwise, you can't tell me the math behind here if you can't even tell me what's in the way and what bar it is and what would the resistance be at that point. You're just BSing yourself. For some reason, you're trying to make yourself look good, and you're just losing it. To me, you're losing it. This could be an optical illusion. I talk about that, but this tape measure says otherwise. That this is higher in the back. To the clowns over in the group that believe this shear down, including Andrew. Now you can take that as an attack, Andrew. I usually don't like being specific like that, but that's a clown statement, meaning it's laughable, but not. It's not laughable because you claim to be an engineer. I find it that's lacking in that you should do no evaluation. You should do no evaluation, and I hold my grounds to that. This is the crack that everyone seems to be counting as not a problem. Right here, this crack here, they still have this able to push off number 12. I'm terminating the video. Let me turn this sideways. I'm terminating the video with this statement here. That all the clowns over in engine tips that keep saying that this sheared off, that they cannot change their mind because they're stuck. I can attack them. The reason why I can attack them, because it doesn't matter. They can't change their mind. So you can mess with somebody that won't change their mind. It's just, you're wasting your energy otherwise. Don't try to change their mind. I'm not trying to change Andrew's mind because it's not possible. He's not open to data. This data, these cracks, it would be contrary to what he said he already did the math on. So this can't exist to Andrew. This data can't be a fact in his mind. This data gets deleted from his mind, which makes him effing crazy, right? Which I say that, and I mean it literally effing crazy. I call it temporary insanity in my other videos. I don't know if this channel, my other channel, or now this channel, I'm saying it. It's temporary insanity because he's not able to accept this as new data. That this is cannot have the ability to slide. That this is an open crack, not compressive. And this is an open crack, not compressive. Open meaning its tension caused this. In this case, I described in the other video the rotation and the cables, etc. That if Andrew still sees this as compressive, he's temporarily insane by his amygdala. And believe me, guys, I'm not really trolling him or getting mad at him. This is the temporary insanity we have. This is what's going on with Andrew and any other engineer who discounts this. Any engineer who discounts this is just temporarily insane, and you can discount their entire rest of their statement. Terminating video.